So today we're continuing the Yoga Vasishta audio discs and continue your meditation.
We are also...
Again, this is from Art of Living. It's a 10 disc audio. I'm gonna ask you to meditate along while you listen. Usually close your eyes and listen and let the message that is behind Yoga Vasishta be a source. Otherwise, what you can do is what I do. I actually do yoga exercises, pranayam, but these are techniques that I was given to practice by a guru. So Siddhanath Gurunath Yogi Raj, if those of you are interested in learning about Kriya Yoga from a currently living enlightened master, and I would strongly advise on doing that as well. But this is part of the first few stages of yoga, which is to find the proper source from where you then allow your mind to grow, and the right source is the person that has the enlightenment. That is the right soil, and then in the lessons of that individual, you, by following their advice, the advices that you do are like the water and the sunshine, and both of which are necessary for you to grow your own tree of yoga, which is ultimately what will bring you the liberation that you seek, or the no-mind state, or immortality, or whatever supernatural power you're trying to obtain through the grace of God.
The abandonment of all notions, conditioning and conceptualization is said to be of two kinds. One is based on knowledge or direct realization, and the other is based on contemplation. Rama, I shall describe them to you in detail. One should become aware of one's deluded notion in which one thinks, I belong to these objects of the world, and my life depends upon them. I cannot live without them, and they cannot exist without me either. Then, by profound inquiry, one contemplates, I do not belong to these objects, nor do these objects belong to me. Thus, abandoning the ego sense through intense contemplation, one should playfully engage oneself in the actions that happen naturally, but with the heart and mind ever cool and tranquil. Such an abandonment of the ego sense and the conditioning is known as the contemplative egolessness. When there is knowledge or direct experience of the non-dual truth, one abandons the ego sense and conditioning and entertains no feeling of this is mine, even with regard to the body. This is known as a direct realization of egolessness. He is considered a liberated sage who is not swayed by the desirable and the undesirable, who lives in this world and functions through inwardly totally untouched by the world, as if in deep sleep. The desire that arises in the course of one's natural functions, devoid of craving, is that of a liberated sage. But that desire, which is bound up with craving for external objects, is conducive to bondage. However, when all ego-based notions have ceased in one's heart, the attention that is directed naturally is also the nature of the liberated sage. That which is afflicted by contact with external objects is the craving conducive to bondage. The non-volitional desire, which is unaffected by any object, is liberation. That desire, which existed even before contact with the objects, exists even now and forever. It is natural, therefore, sorrowless and free from impurity. Such a desire is regarded by the wise as free from bondage. The following 4 types of feelings arise in the heart of men. 1. I am the body of my parents. 2. I am the subtle atomic principle different from the body. 3. I am the eternal principle in all the diverse perishable objects in the world. And 4. The I, as also the world, are pure void like space. Of these, the first is conducive to bondage and the others to freedom. Once the realization that I am the self of all has arisen, one does not again fall into error or sorrow. It is this self alone which is variously described as the void, nature, Maya, Brahman, consciousness, Shiva, Purusha, etc. That alone is ever real. There is nothing else. Resort to the understanding of non-duality, for the truth is non-dual. However, action involves duality and hence functions in apparent duality. The reality is neither duality nor unity. When these concepts cease, the infinite consciousness alone is realized to be the sole reality. The liberated sage, who is disinterested in the events of the past, present, and future, looks at the state of the world with amusement. We are unable to expound the philosophy of the fools who have not controlled their own minds and who are immersed in the mire of sensual pleasure. They are only interested in sexual pleasures and in the acquisition of material wealth. We are also unable to expound the path of rituals and routines which bestow all kinds of rewards in the shape of pain and pleasure. Craving is the root of all sorrow. Only intelligent way is to renounce all cravings completely and not to indulge in them. This indeed is the state of the Supreme Consciousness, pure, free from craving and from illness. The mind attains fulfillment only by utter dispassion and not by filling it with desires and hopes. To those who are devoid of any attachment or craving, the worlds are as wide as the footprint of a calf, and the whole world cycle is but a moment. Hence, for restoring peace to the mind, remove the disturbing cause, which is hope or craving.
The one self, which is the soul experiencing, is therefore the experiencer in all. Hence, the self is said to have 1,000 hands and 1,000 eyes. With this beauteous body of the sun, this self, which is I, roams the space, as also in the body of air. I am woman, I am man, I am the youth, I am the senile old man, and on account of embodiment, I am apparently born here. From the ground of the infinite consciousness, I raise trees and plants, being present in them as their very essence. Even as clay in the hands of a playful child, this world appearance is pervaded by me for my own delight. This world exists in me, the self or infinite consciousness, even as a reflection seems to exist in a mirror. I am the light in radiance, and even in that light, I am the experience. Whatever mobile and immobile beings exist in this universe, I am their supreme truth or consciousness free from conceptualization. I am the very essence in all things in the universe. Just as butter exists in milk and liquidity exists in water, even so as the energy of consciousness, I exist in all that exists. This world appearance of the past, the present, and the future exists in the infinite consciousness without the distinction of objectivity. This omnipresent, omnipotent, cosmic being is the Self, which is indicated by the I.
The very best intelligent means by which the mind can be subdued is complete freedom from desire, hope, or expectation in regard to all objects at all times. It is by this means that this powerful elephant called the mind can be subdued. This approach is both very easy and extremely difficult, my son. It is very difficult for one who does not engage himself in serious practice, but very easy for one who is not subdued without persistent practice. Hence, take up this practice of renunciation until one turns away from sense pleasures here. One will continue to roam in this world of sorrow. Even a strong man will not reach his destination if he does not move towards it. No one can reach the state of total dispassion without persistent practice. Only by right exertion can dispassion be attained. There is no other means. People talk of divine grace, of fate. But in this world, we perceive the body, not a God. When people speak of God, they imply what is inevitable, what is beyond their control, and the events of natural order. Even so, whatever brings about total equanimity and cessation of joy and sorrow is also referred to as divine grace. Divine grace, natural order, and right self-exertion, all these refer to the same truth. The distinction is due to wrong perception or illusion. What the mind conceives of through right self-exertion comes to be in its fruition, and when the mind apprehends such fruition, there is experience of joy. The mind is the doer, and whatever it conceives of, the natural order, niyati, creates and manifests. Prompted by nature, he seems to move or stand still, both of which are mere expressions or false superimpositions, even as the movement of trees on a mountain top makes it look as if the peak is swaying. Hence, as long as there is mind, there is neither God nor a natural order. When the mind has ceased to be, let there be whatever is. Only when one is filled with goodness is one qualified to listen to the exposition of the highest wisdom. Hence, one should constantly endeavor to educate the mind with purifying knowledge and nourish it with the inner transformations brought about by the study of the scriptures. When the mind has thus been transformed, it is able to reflect the truth without distortion. Then, without delay, one should endeavor to see the self. Self-realization and cessation of craving should proceed hand in hand. True dispassion doesn't arise in one by austerity, charity, pilgrimage, etc., but only directly perceiving one's own nature. There is no means for direct self-realization except by right self-exertion. Hence, one should give up dependence upon a god of fate. By right self-exertion, firmly reject the seeking of pleasure. When dispassion matures, the spirit of inquiry arises in oneself. The spirit of inquiry strengthens dispassion. The two are interdependent, even as the ocean and the clouds are. These two, and also self-realization, are all intimate friends and always exist together. Hence, Rama, first of all, one should abandon all dependence on extraneous factors. With intense self-exertion, cultivate dispassion. One may, however, earn wealth without violating local traditions and customs and without defying one's relatives, etc. One should utilize this wealth to acquire the company of good and holy men endowed with noble qualities. Such company of holy men generates dispassion. Then there arises the spirit of inquiry, knowledge of scriptures. By stages, one reaches the supreme truth. When you turn completely away from the pursuit of pleasure, you attain to the state of the supreme state through the means of inquiry. When the self is completely purified, you will be firmly established in the supreme peace. You will never again fall into the maya of conceptualization, which is the cause of sorrow. Though you continue to live, you will remain freed from all hopes and expectations. In accordance with the prevailing social tradition, acquire a little wealth. With that, acquire the company of saints and adore them. By their
Just an advice for folks meditating. One of the big challenges in meditation is that when you start becoming silent and still, your desire for meditation has to pair and go beyond your desire for anything else. The reason is, if you are like this, everything in life is a vibration will overtake the other vibration. A weaker one is like a small wave, and versus a big tidal wave that comes over. This one will be, and the entire current will be moved towards a particular direction. The way you don't want your mind to go around is your own mind to become destroyed by the different things of life. So the mind is like a tool, much like a wave. It reflects and it reacts as a wave phenomena. So if you're sitting in meditation and your interest in meditation is somewhat and not extreme, what will happen is that your meditation will be like that little wave. That little wave will get overtaken by anything you want to scratch. Well, you're in comfort, your desire to not have discomfort may be a little bit higher. Your desire to be somewhere on time may be a little bit higher than your actual desire for meditation, so you will be checking on the time, things like that. So the idea is that no matter what you are, your mind will go in that direction. Now, if your desire for meditation is superior to that, that's why you have to, this is a decision that you have to take by yourself. You have to tell like I tell myself, meditation is the most important thing in my life. I'm doing it now. It's the most important thing. And now when you do that, the exercise of meditation gets put in contrast with the thoughts of your mind, and then your thoughts of your mind are way lower than your desire for meditation, and then you take yourself into a different state of awareness, or you simply realize how you are not the mind by that. If you are taken over by the mind, you think it is actually you. But if your desire is to meditate, to do a pranayama, then that meditation and that pranayama will become the experience of who you are and your greatest identity, and not the mind. If you're not able to focus to that degree in your desire for meditation and to the fruits of meditation, which is the realization, then unfortunately you will have a long time before you're able to enjoy the benefits of meditation. That is why hanging around with a Sadguru or someone that already has made it their purpose in their life to attain to God realization or a higher state of awareness through hardship and through meditation, you will see that it is your actual desires are like a vector of interest that will compel your body to do something in particular, like get you out of meditation, go to the bathroom. It's like if you have diarrhea and you're meditating, you're gonna get up and you're gonna run to the bathroom because you don't want to poop all over yourself. Well, it's unfortunately that simple, And that is why absolutely everything, if your desire for meditation does not compare and it's not superior to paying your taxes and all these things, I mean, you have to be thinking, and it's that simple. I'm gonna get arrested, it doesn't matter, my meditation has to be more important. I'm gonna get fired from work, doesn't matter, my meditation has to be more important. And you will see that when you get up from the meditation, the mind was not able to distract you out of there, and that most of the ideas that the mind fabricates is like everything else. You're actually quite calm yourself, and the mind exacerbates you and takes you out of. And even then, it's not even you that's angry, it's not even you that does this or that, it's actually the mind. But until you get that experience, the quickest way would be to create the contrast behind what you really have intention and whatnot. So this is something that I strongly advise. Your mindset before every meditation has to be, and you have to focus on that, the meditation and nothing else. If you go to meditation like, oh, I'm gonna meditate from 6 to 8, that's not how you meditate. You actually have to be saying, my house is on fire, I burn, I die, the house explodes, I'm going to die meditating. I'm not gonna get up from this seat. And as all of you have, probably heard by now, in the story of Buddha, the Buddha attained to his realization as Buddha when he decided, not before. He had to decide, I'm not gonna get here even if I die. I mean, I'm not getting up from this seat until I reach that supreme state. And sure enough, folks, he starved himself nearly to death, and he didn't get even then his realization. But it was after that when his mind, he actually had that unique thing where you will only respond to a particular. It's like you only respond to something in particular. In reality, that's how the consciousness can multiply and create everything it desires at any given time without the slightest effort, just by wishing it so. On some degrees of on some levels of concentration, you can create anything you want with your thought alone. You say, I want to see I don't know, my son when he was 6 months old. You can see him just by desiring that, and your desire becomes a projection. But at this level of consciousness, which is a physical body, you can't see that because it's not a physical projection, but it's a light. You actually will emit a light, it will create a light. But if you're not focused on existing in that degree of consciousness, the light is actually just an idea from your mind, and consequently it's like an idea. Like if now you thought, let me think of an apple, and it's just an apple in your mind. But in reality, on some degrees of consciousness, it's not a thought. It's actually an image. You have a physical apple in front of you, but that's at that degree of consciousness. So likewise, if you want to reach, if you want to go beyond what you are used to being toyed around with the mind, then you have to take things above what the mind can. And the mind will only, you see, it's like saying the mind is not gonna fool you with meditation, with the truth. It's like, I can't lie to you with the truth. The truth will not cause for you to be cheated. Likewise, if you choose the meditation, the mind, which is disorganized meditation, the mind is like they say, it's you working like this, and versus going like this with concentration. So meditation, remember, it's the step after concentration. So even within meditation there is concentration, but you don't experience the concentration because you actually went beyond that. So that's what yoga is about. Eventually the meditation becomes samadhi or samyam, where all three things really collapse, and it's just samadhi that remains as I guess a machine that's working fast enough that it can actually propel a vehicle. So going back to Yoga Vasishtha.
Company, you will gain contempt for the objects of pleasure, and by right inquiry you will gain self-knowledge.
So it is normal to have your mind go crazy, but you can overcome that only by the decision to go and do absolutely nothing but that. If you are not doing that, then you are not meditating. You're working on concentration, but you will not get to meditation until you make the decision that and then your actual concentration will be good. and then you will experience the effect, which is meditation.
When the apparently transformed being resorts to or rests on that being which has not undergone any change, the former is freed from sorrow. When consciousness abandons the perception of the three modes of time, when it is freed from the bondage of objectivity or conceptualization, it rests in utter tranquility. It is as if it were unreal because it is beyond description. Hence, some people declare that the self does not exist. Whether there is the self or not, that which is not subject to dissolution is the supreme liberation. On account of the modification that is thought, this consciousness is apparently veiled and is not realized.
Every zealous effort is always crowned with fruition. Hence, do not abandon right effort. Weigh the worthiness of the end result. You will surely discover that self-knowledge alone is capable of destroying all pain and pleasure. Hence, zealous effort should be directed towards self-knowledge alone. Get rid of all notions of objectivity created by the pleasure-seeking desire within you. Is there any happiness untainted by unhappiness? Both the absence of restraint and the practice of restraint are indeed one in the absolute consciousness. There is no real division between them. Yet the practice of restraint bestows great joy and auspiciousness upon you. Hence, resort to self-restraint and give up ego sense. The conditioned mind alone is bondage. Liberation happens when the mind is unconditioned. The conditioning of the mind drops away when the truth is clearly seen and realized. When the conditioning has ceased, one's consciousness is made supremely peaceful. To realize that the self alone is all this, whatever one may think of anywhere is clear perception. Conditioning and mind are but words without corresponding truth. When the truth is investigated, they cease to be meaningful. This is clear perception. When this clear perception arises, there is liberation. This universe exists in the infinite consciousness just as future waves exist in a calm sea. The infinite consciousness is unmanifest, though omnipresent. Just as the reflection of an object in crystal can be said to be neither real nor entirely unreal, one cannot say that this universe reflected in the infinite consciousness is real or unreal. Again, just as the space is unaffected by the clouds that float in it, the infinite consciousness is unaffected and untouched by the universe that appears in it. Just as light is not seen except through the reflecting agent, even so the infinite consciousness is revealed through these various bodies. It is essentially nameless and formless, but names and forms are ascribed to its reflections. Consciousness reflecting in consciousness shines as consciousness and exists as consciousness. Yet to the one who is ignorant, there arises the notion that there has come into being and there exists something other than this consciousness. This consciousness is not created, nor does it perish. It is eternal, and world appearance is superimposed on it, even as waves in relation to the ocean. In that consciousness, when it is reflected within itself, there arises the I am notion, which gives rise to diversity. The sense of doership, which gives rise to both happiness and unhappiness, is fictitious in the eyes of the wise. To the ignorant, however, it is real. This notion arises when the mind, spurred by the predisposition, endeavors to gain something. The resultant action is then attributed to oneself. When the same action leads to experience of its fruition, the notion, I enjoy this, arises. The two notions are in truth the two faces of the same notion. The wise man, even while acting in this world, is not interested in the fruits of those actions. He lets actions happen in his life without attachment to those actions. He regards them as non-different from his own self. But such is not the attitude of one who is immersed in the mental state. Whatever the mind does, that alone is action. Hence, mind alone is the doer of actions, not the body. The mind alone is this world appearance. This world appearance has arisen in it and rests in the mind. When the objects as well as the experiencing mind have become tranquil, consciousness alone remains. The wise declare that the mind of the enlightened is neither in the state of bliss nor devoid of bliss, neither in motion nor static, neither real or unreal, but between these two propositions, his unconditioned consciousness blissfully plays its role in this world appearance as if in a play. He does not even entertain the notion of liberation, nor that of bondage. He sees the self and self alone.
The entire manifestation of creation is but an accidental manifestation of the intention of the omnipotent conscious energy of the infinite consciousness. The intention itself condenses and thus gives rise in the mind to the substance thus intended. Immediately the mind reproduces the substance as if in the objective field. At this stage there is a notion of this creation having factually abandoned its fundamental and true nature as the finite consciousness. Thus infinite consciousness apparently sees within itself a pure void, and the conscious energy thereupon brings space into existence. In that conscious energy there arises an intention to diversify. This intention is itself then regarded as Creator Brahma with its retinue of other living creatures. Thus have all the world appeared in the space of the infinite consciousness with their endless variety of beings. Some are immersed in dense darkness, some are very close to enlightenment, and others fully enlightened. In this world, among the species of living beings, only the humans are fit to be instructed into the nature of truth. Even among these human beings, many are obsessed by sorrow and delusion, hate and fear.
Descriptions of creation, etc., are given in the scriptures for the purpose of instructing disciples. When you realize that which is indicated by the worlds, in the infinite consciousness itself, there is neither an intention nor the veil of delusion, but that itself is before you as the world. This can be realized only when ignorance comes to an end. ignorance will not cease except with the help of instruction, which rests in the use of these words and descriptions. This ignorance seeks to destroy itself and hence seeks the light of true knowledge. Weapons are destroyed by other weapons, poison cures poison, and enemies are destroyed by other enemies. Even so, this Maya rejoices when it is destroyed. The moment you become aware of this Maya, it vanishes. This ignorance will not go away without self-knowledge, and self-knowledge arises only when the scripture are studied deeply. Whatever may be the origin of this ignorance, surely even that exists in the self. Do not inquire into how has the ignorance arisen, but inquire into how shall I get rid of it. When this ignorance or Maya has ceased to be, then you shall know how it arose. You will realize that this ignorance is not a real entity. The incidental power of the infinite consciousness appears as the millions of species of beings in this universe. These countless are caught up in their own mental conditioning. They are found in every country and in every place in the universe, and they are in every conceivable kind of situation. Some of them are part of the new creation in this epoch. Others are more ancient. Some have incarnated just a couple of times. Others have had countless incarnations. Some are liberated. Others are sunk in dreadful suffering. Some are celestials. Some are demigods. And others are the deities presiding over this manifest universe. Some others are demons. Others are goblins. Some are members of the four castes of human beings, and others are members of primitive, uncivilized tribes. Some of them are in the form of herbs and grass. Others appear as roots. Some are in the form of creepers, and some are living as flowers. Some are the kings and their ministers clad in royal robes. Others are clad in rags and bark of trees. Some are snakes and others are insects. Others are animals like lions, tigers, etc. Some are birds. Others are elephants and donkeys. Some are prosperous. Others are in adverse circumstances. Some are in heaven and others are in hell. Some are in the region of the stars. Others are in the holes of dying trees. Some live amongst liberated trees. Some live amongst liberated sages. Others are already liberated sages who have risen above body consciousness. Some are endowed with enlightened intelligence. Some are extremely dull. That which was non-existent in the beginning, and that which shall cease to be in the end, is not real in the middle either. That which exists in the beginning and in the end is the reality in the present too. See that all this is unreal, including myself, and there will be no sorrow in you. Or see that all this is real, including myself, and sorrow will not touch you either. Knowing that the entire universe, including one's wealth, wife, son, and so on, are nothing but the creation of the jugglery of the mind. One does not grieve when they are lost, nor does one feel elated when they prosper. If an unreal appearance has vanished, what does one lose? If it is utterly unreal, then how can it be destroyed? On the other hand, it may be proper to feel unhappy when they prosper. Such prosperity may intensify one's ignorance. Hence, that which generates attachment and craving in the fool generates detachment and cool indifference in the wise. The nature of the wise person is not to desire for those experiences which one does not effortlessly obtain, and to experience those which have already arrived.
That is the end of track number 1 of disc number 4 of Yoga Vashishta. We will be resuming and then starting onto the next one probably later today or some other time this week. Once again, I really advise you folks to buy the 10 disc album. It's found at artofliving.com. I asked them and they shipped it over to me in Canada, so I think they do international shipping. So it costs us probably around $35 or something like that, plus whatever the shipping is to where you live. But it's one of those. There are two books that I think any human being should, any human being that's interested in yoga, an actual interest in yoga and Kriya Yoga in particular. One is Bhagavad Gita, the other one is Yoga Vashishta, and then the books that we use in the Kriya Yoga. This is one of the most mysterious things that you ask people, how much do you know about Kriya Yoga, and then you actually talk to people, tell you, I know about Paramahansa Yogananda. I was like, oh, really good, you know about Yogi Raj, okay, so you read those 2 books. Do you know about Babaji? And they're like, yeah, of course, I know about Babaji. I know he did this. He's like supreme yogi, above even the level of Sampurna or a full-blown avatar. I mean, even above the level of Krishna. You're like, oh, really? It even exists? So what I would say to people is, there are many sources of information, but if you are a Christian and you had a book called, that you knew was written by Jesus, why would you read anybody else's literature? That's my question to most people that are interested in the Kriya Yoga doctrine. The reason is, it took me quite a while as a Kriya Yogi to believe. This is what actually happened to me. I know who Babaji was. It's like, yeah, he was supposedly a sannyasi, a monk, or supremely realized being. I mean, we don't know much about him besides that he was known as Shiv Goraksha Babaji. He's an incarnation of Lord Shiva himself. So it's the pure consciousness deciding to come to earth to stimulate evolution for the other souls or the jivas here, or whatever you want to talk about it. But he wrote books. The Supreme Consciousness wrote books as Shiv Goraksha Babaji, like the Siddha Siddhanta Paddhati. And my question is, how come all of us know so much about everybody else, but we haven't read the books of Shiv Goraksha Babaji? So it's like saying we have live testimony that today has been translated, I think, at least to English, but we have books that exist currently and are testimony of these entities. Another excellent book on Babaji was written by Yogiraj Gurunath Siddhanath, and his testimony of he's a direct disciple of Babaji, and therefore how much, I mean, you have tremendous resources today as to what yoga truly is. So, by the way, folks, I looked the Siddha Siddhanta Paddhati, the book of Gorakshanath, and then the date that I did that, 5 minutes before, I told I was working, and I told God, I was like, God, please take me up to the next level in terms of knowledge and spirituality. I know if I don't appeal to you on a natural basis, I'm not able gonna succeed to the things that you have to reveal to me. Like 3 minutes later, I had already found the website. I don't know why I started looking for Gorakshanath, but the logic to me is like, sometimes we have the answers hidden right in our faces. We have we have the most enlightened spiritual. We can't even say entity. I don't know if we can call it entity, like consciousness, or anyways. But such individuals did already exist, and they left us testimony of how. I mean, books that should be studied. And at least if you were a Kriya yogi, it wouldn't make sense that one day you would die. And I mean, if somebody told me, yeah, you're a Kriya yogi, yeah, I'm a Kriya yogi, and okay, did you read Shiv Goraksha Babaji, the creator of your yoga's book? It's like, crap, I didn't. After being a Kriya yogi for 10, 20 years, 15, 30 years, and I never read his book. So, you know, this was, believe it or not, I take it to be the grace of God. It was, you know, I did ask God for to bring me to the next level in knowledge and spiritual studies for myself. I don't know what level you are or whoever you are, but that's something that happened. So along the things like that, for that example, those of you that have the money to buy books, then those are the books that I said. Bhagavad Gita as it is, translated into an audiobook. Then you have Yoga Vasishta, also an audiobook. Look how nice. You don't even have to read anymore. Those two excellent books are Bhagavad Gita as it is, takes about 2 hours 20 to finish, and it's an audiobook. So if you're driving Montreal to Ottawa, you can listen to it, the entirety of it. As far as Yoga Vasishta, well, Yoga Vasishta is it's a long read. It's like 10 hours of audiobook, but it's an excellent thing. And then you have Yogi Raj's book, Wings to Freedom, which talks, among many other things, about his experience meeting Babaji Shiv Goraksha. And hopefully, you know, if you could get Autobiography of a Yogi and all these other books, then sure enough. But if you are a yogi, the most important person in yoga and world history is Shiv Goraksha Babaji. How have we not heard or read that book? That is my final question. We are Kriya yogis. How did we not read the creator of the yoga system and techniques, on whose effort and grace all our efforts are even being based? How come we don't know about it? So that's, you know, it talks about the quality of devotee that we are. I think all of us have a lot to do, probably a lot of effort to do, but by the grace of God, sure enough, I didn't figure this out on my own. This was actually something that I asked God, and sure enough, 5 minutes later, I was reading the Siddha Siddhanta Paddhati. I wish you all the best, and we'll continue at another time for the meditation. Again, do these meditations at home. I think on average, people that are in my generation, they have to meditate at least 6 hours a day. And once that is figured out and how you're going to do that, go around with your life. And the reason why I'm saying this is because it's, I don't know what to tell you. I think 6 hours a day is quite some time, but life was to some degree meant to be lived in a certain way. And the one thing you don't want to miss is the most important thing in life, and for me particularly, it's God. I know for a lot of you it's God. If you are a Buddhist and you want to reach to Buddhahood in this life, you're not gonna make it doing less than 6 hours a day anyways. So you know, orient your life around your meditation and not make meditation into your life, because like I said earlier today, if your frequency of the intensity of your desire for meditation is so little that you can put it into your life, then this is not to be judgmental about your life. Your life is an adaptation of many things, among which karma. So more than be judgmental about it, make the conscious decision to change your life, to make meditation the foremost, most important thing in your life, around which everything else will be set up. So what does that mean? That probably means for most of us, work less, dedicate entire days to meditation, and it will take some time, but you have to create methods of censorship for, such as, you know, myself, the cell phone. I was meditating, the cell phone was ringing. Some things you shouldn't interrupt, and meditation is one of them. Eventually, in due time, I think one of the most beautiful things that you will obtain from this meditation is the compound effort that you do, is that you will develop your own faith on the basis of what you will experience, and not on the basis of what you're hearing and being told from someone else. Regardless of what your faith is based on, there are proof of God, but unfortunately most people will not get it, because they have in reality they have no interest other than a conversation, other than argumentation, but really it wouldn't progress them on a spiritual basis, you know. And it's like, let's say you have ants at home, and you're asking, you know, creation, you're asking, you know, some people say, well, you want proof from God? You don't need to ask God. You can just ask the sun god, technically, and you would get an answer in due time, or whichever way, you know, you ask an effort. Sometimes you will get exactly the type of answer that you want, but from a spiritual basis, there are things that you know, entities that are to some degree conditioned will not be able to manifest for you, and you really need God to show you a different facet of creation, which on another level, which demands you to change. For example, you may need to see the world through different eyes. You may need to see creation and life itself through different eyes, in order to, you may need to go into another dimension to see that things are completely not as red, white, blue and you know, yellow as you thought they were, and that actually there's also gray and black, and that creation is like that. So I wish you all the best. Once again, of the things, why partly, folks, why I'm saying, you know, 6 hours a day is the minimum meditation. You folks want to give something of worth to your children, then you have to get rid of your mind. You have to see how you, in a way, are destroying yourself, and you will see how your children are destroyed by society and by yourself at the same time, by your mistakes, by those things that you think is you but is not really you. So those things that you think is you and is not really you causes for tremendous harm, and you know, part of the unfortunate thing in creation is that in terms of time, we all have limitations. You don't have an infinite amount of time to make mistakes, and if you reach Buddhahood at the age of 95, okay, well, thanks for sharing with us your 5 years of knowledge left. You actually get to live to be 100. But the idea behind that is that, you know, you want to reach the best that you can ever be at a young age, so that you can benefit society, your children, yourself. You know, you want to live a life full of honor, full of the glories of having achieved something tremendous. Well, then certainly you have to work hard for it, but it is possible, and that's the idea. That's what I'm trying to say. It is possible. God has made it possible. Not only that, God has provided the tools for us to reach that. Not only that, God then creates for Mahavtars to come here to help you out to reach that destination. And then if you screw along the path, then why not get Christ to help you out along? So you know, and then okay, well, Christ is no longer there. Okay, well, then let's send Yogaraj, you know. So there is a method for humans to achieve, and then you will see eventually, after you do this for many years. And what you really have to do is you have to listen, and you have to actually follow the advice that is being set out for you. Just like when you go see a doctor and you're telling him, You know, I've been having trouble with sleep. I sleep only 2 hours at night. Then you talk with him, and sure enough, you're taking coffee at 10 p.m. Or you're drinking any other type of, you know, you're taking an excitatory medication at night, or you're having your cell phone at 2 in the morning like this, or you're playing video games till 2 a.m. You know, they will give you advice and it will work. It will help you. But sometimes you like the way you live your life, and that's why you won't get the benefits of what they're telling you. There's a way to do it through medication, and there's a way to do it through meditation. Meditation is the medication for reality, for the illusion that is living with a mind in a body which is compelled by the mind to find solutions for itself and to work in a way through trial and error. Not really knowing what others are thinking, but somehow being confused and being beguiled into all this. So, make a long story short, you have a lot to gain. You have far more to gain in seeing a yogi than seeing a doctor. Fixing your life should be your priority, and I don't mean fixing as in your life right now is screwed up. Not at all. I'm saying, if you don't know anything, then sleeping on a dirt floor, if that's all you know all your life, that's all you've seen, everybody around you sleeps on a dirt floor, then it's like you have to listen. I'm like, hey guy, listen, you know, that dog was probably peeing there last night. I don't know what to tell you. I saw a bunch of cattle walk around, some pooped over there. I saw some rats walking by the other day. Oh, by the way, the trash fell there, and now you're sleeping there. You know, that's something that I could tell you. Or I could tell you, listen, there's a sofa here. Why don't you come along and just lay down there? And guess what? The sofa is yours. All you need to do is, instead of laying on the floor, you can lay on the sofa. That sofa is the meditation. The people that help you out to that, if you don't listen to their advice, is like if you don't listen to the doctor. So you have problems with sleep, but you don't really care. You actually don't really care, because they tell you, well, stop using your cell phone past 10 p.m. But hey doc, my email, doc, my son sent me a message at 2 in the morning. I'm coming to see you because I'm having difficulty to sleep. I need something to sleep. So the idea with meditation is pretty much the same. If folks, from the perspective of some of these enlightened sages, we are actually living our lives like animals. We're living our life like animals because they're completely free from the mind. And you don't know how bad the mind has ran the world to absolute chaos until you experience a little bit of that peace. And that is the idea behind it. This is a very unsettling message for most of you, and I hope that some of you at least listened to this late in the video. But the idea, this is an idea and a notion that mankind has to value. You folks and folks in general, we value retirement. You think that retirement is something worth? Retirement is the last thing you should be working on. The reason is logic. Why would you work today for something in 35 years? It's absolutely insane. You don't know what can happen in 35 years. Look at all those people that they saved away $20,000 for retirement. $20,000 they worked on, and they put money aside for 30 years. What I'm saying is, having a plan for the future is not stupid. But the plan has to be you and you foremost, regardless of. And the problem with giving these messages to people is that a lot of very mediocre people that get just enticed by the mind into this and into that and into warmongering, you listen to a message like this, and unfortunately, you do not see the effort to help you and help others. You will see something. Oh, so he doesn't want this to do work for retirement. So it's don't fall into the weak. That idea, that thought that comes to your mind is actually not you. That's what I'm trying to say. But you will not realize that until you actually do what the sages say, and they say those things for a reason. When you actually live like a real human being. You will actually live the life of an enlightened human being. It's like You remember those Chinese princesses that used to get their feet bound together for aesthetic purposes, and then their feet were like this, and then they were told by society, well, your feet look nice, honey, look, they look really good, yeah, your tiny feet are so cute. That's not real. You know, this is to the same degree how our society works. There will always be good humans, there will always be bad humans. Good human can turn bad, a bad human can turn good. Who controls all that is God. So in that sense, don't be judgmental to people. But in terms of what interests you, one is you have to find solitude. You have to separate yourself from, if you really are honest in your own well-being, your only testament is yourself. And as a matter of fact, when people have attained very high degrees of enlightenment, the entire world, when they say the entire world loses its importance, is because you actually have no method of communicating with people, because they're not on the same level as you are. And it goes back to the Buddha. Can you imagine what the Buddha learned from a standpoint when he is saying, I will not stand up from this seat until I reach Buddhahood? You know, this goes beyond death. This goes beyond all these concepts of what, you know, of all priority. I mean, forget priority. Do you think the Buddha's life was at risk? Do you think his son's life was probably at risk? Do you think his you know, the reality of the fact is that eventually the Buddha got up from there, he saw his son, he saw many people, and he brought unto this world a religion which is one of the biggest world religions. But the idea behind that is actually, the basis of all that is the truth. It's not that you will not die by sitting down and having your priority up there, but you know, it's if you value your time, you know, it through love for yourself, love for your children. And one of the best things that you can do is first approach a sage like Guru Nath, Siddhanath, Yogi Raj. Get live lectures from them, meditate with them, and then actually do what they say. The bottom line will be that you have to do what they say. I strongly advise people to reach out directly to the source of Kriya Yoga, which is Shiv Gorakshar Babaji, through Yogi Raj, through the yogis of the Himalayas, and just be truthful. That's it, the bottom line. You know, wish you all the best.